Welcome, everyone. I'm Todd Bromley, Judges Committee Chair. We're meeting today to discuss Test Refresh. This is an initiative that was started over 2 years ago. I would like to thank Eric Hampton, Test Committee Chair, and Lynn Goldman, Task Force Chair, for their extensive work on this important initiative that will impact all moves in the field tests, free skating tests for both singles and pairs, and all dance tests. I will now turn the presentation over to Lynn Goldman.
Thanks, Todd. As you stated, we're talking about Test Refresh, and our Stage 2 implements September 2nd, 2018. What's really important to mention is I know everybody's concerned about the change of the marking structure of our test program. However, what's really, really important is the test standards and test expectations have not changed. As a judge, you know today what a juvenile standard is. That has not changed. The only thing different is the mark that you're going to give.
Thanks, Lynn. In this Moves in the Field video, we'll be covering the updated marking scale, marking translation from 6.0 scale to a mark on a -3 to +3 scale, the removal of serious error restriction rules, which mandated a retry test result, Moves in the Field adjustments to marking table, updated Moves in the Field test forms to include test standards, expectations, and patterns on the form for reference and notation, and 2 new passing categories, Pass with Honors and Pass with Distinction.
I did want to bring up 2 new resources that are being created. One, Eric Hampton is creating for skaters and coaches a Moves in the Field checklist, which will show skaters what those test level expectations are for them, and they'll have a little handbook for that. But for the judges, this is the really cool thing. He has created a handbook for tests, and it's going to be a resource for all things tests. It's going to be basically your test manual.
Before we talk about the -3 to +3 marking of Moves in the Field tests for pre-preliminary, adult pre-bronze, and Special Olympics therapeutic skating tests all remain the same as pass and retry only.
So here's our new scale that we're going to use. Instead of the 6.0 scale, we're going to use 0 up to +3 and -3. But what we need to do is we need to define points and understand what each of those levels mean. So we've created the passing average, which is 0. If a test is above average, that would be a +1. If it's clearly above, that would be a +2. And maybe even above that, considering that might be more than one test higher, that would be a +3. Also, conversely, a test that's below passing would be a -1, clearly below a -2, and significantly below a -3.
Now that Lynn has explained our new marking scale, we need to look at how the test levels are linked together. To do this, we will be looking at the marking equivalency between test levels, where a mark of +3 is equivalent to a mark of 0 at one test level above. By marking a +3, a judge communicates that the skater performed at the passing standard of one test level or more above.
So we're going to look at the side-by-side forms here in a minute and how we're going to mark what we would have marked today on a 6.0 scale to September 2nd on the +3 -3 scale. So let's look at a pre-juvenile moves test. So we have a skater who happened to excel on the 5-step Mohawk sequence and power pole patterns, but has some quality errors on the outside and inside 3 turns. On the left is the current form that we know today, and on the right is the new form. On the bottom of the form of the 6.0 form, we know what the passing average is, 2.7. We don't have that on the new form because we know the passing average is now 0. So let's go through this test. So on the forward and backward powered stroking, this judge felt like they met the passing standard. So today we would give them a 2.7. In the new system, we would basically give them a 0. On the 3 turns, they didn't have as much quality, so the judge felt like they should give a 2.6, or today, or after September 2nd, it would be a -1. Again, the 3 turns, they had issues there, so a 2.6 today would equal a -1 after September 2nd. They excelled above +1 on the power pole, so that today would be a 2.8 or a +1 tomorrow. The backward circle 8, they felt like it met the passing standard, so that would be a 2.7 or a 0. And the 5-step Mohawk sequence, they were clearly above, so that would be a +2 or a 2.9, 0.2 higher than a 2.7, which is the passing standard. So what we do today, we total it up, 16.3, it passes. What we do here is we also total it up, it becomes a +1, and you can see at the bottom, we'll look at it a little bit more closely later, that in order to pass this test, you need anywhere from a 0 to a +6, so this skater has a +1, so they pass this test. So once I show this to a lot of judges, they tell me, this is kind of what I'm doing now. They're going up a few, down a few, based on what they need. So instead of thinking it as a passing standard of 2.7, you're now going to think of the passing standard of 0. So one of the other things that we're doing is we are getting rid of serious error that are mandatory. What's happened over the years is that the judges have kind of moved away from judging a test based on quality or that athletes' skill knowledge, whether they're ready to move up or not, and more of a police saying, okay, you fail, you can't pass, without really looking at the whole test in general.
In place of serious error restriction rules, we have developed marking adjustments for moves in the field test, which are presented in this table. This moves in the field adjustments to marking table is included in the handbook for tests. It's important to know that these marking adjustments apply only to moves in the field tests. Major errors replace serious errors for moves in the field tests. For these errors, the judge's mark is limited. This is shown in the table as mark no higher than. A touchdown of the hand or free foot needed to save the skater from falling. The mark can be no higher than -2 for that moves in the field element. The other major error is a fall. If the skater has a fall, the mark can be no higher than -3 for that moves in the field element. Minor errors are an incidental touchdown of the free foot and a loss of balance. Mandatory deductions remain the same, Rule 5036. These are exceeding the 7 introductory steps, not starting from a standing stationary position when required, incorrect execution of a second fresh start. For minor errors and mandatory deductions, the judge's mark is not limited, but is reduced by -1 from the mark that would have otherwise been given. Again, the moves in the field adjustments to marking table applies only to moves in the field tests. This table is included in the handbook for tests. Next, Lynn will be talking about the moves in the field test forms.
So one of the things that we've done is work on our new test forms. Juliet Newcomer from headquarters has provided us with our new test forms that we're really excited to share with you today. If you guys remember when the moves came out, PSA came up with a manual for test standards and expectations and the patterns for each of the tests. So you're going to see when we look at the moves, new test sheets, that we're going to incorporate some of that information right onto the test sheet for the judge. This is the PSA moves in the field manual that was created a while back and modified. So in the book, they have the pattern right there for you to look at, and they've also shown what the focus is on the test. You can see what the test standards are, and you can see what the common errors are. So a lot of us, when we're at test sessions, we have our PSA manual next to us while we're judging the tests.
So, using our current form, adding in the information on test standards expectations, we arrived at the new moves in the field test form.
This is the new sheet that Eric had the idea to put the pattern of the move right on the test sheet for the judge to be able to have. Similar to those of you who judge dance, that's how our pattern dances look now. So this is right here on the test sheet for you. This is a draft version that we plan on releasing September 2nd. And again, thanks to Juliet for creating these new test sheets. Also, you can see what we put the words of the test standard and expectations right there for you, so the judge can be looking at that while they're marking the element. They can write comments on here. They can put check marks or plus marks on each of the different standards or expectations that you see, but this is what our new test sheets are going to look like. Still on moves in the field, you'll see there's just one mark for each element, +3, -3. That has not changed.
While editing moves in the field video for judges training, it became very apparent about the amount of ice time used waiting for judges to finish writing their long-form comments. During this time, the skater would remain in the ready position, waiting to perform the next moves in the field element, and may be wondering if the judges are writing positive or negative comments. This delay may affect the skater's performance on the next moves in the field element. Long-form comments may or may not be read, and being written in a cold arena rinkside may not be legible, and may not be completely understood. Using short-form notation, both on patterns and in relation to our test standards expectations, provides clear, concise, simple, action-based feedback information to skater and coach. If the judge needs to communicate further using a long-form method, and the space provided is insufficient, space is available on the reverse of the test form if necessary. Again, being mindful of the skater being ready to perform and mindful of ice time and ice cost. To go beyond the simple pass in Lynn's example, to put this into perspective, how often have we had the pleasure of assessing a moves in the field test with a result of 0.8 up or even 1.4 up? Again, with the translation to the new system, this is a score of +8 and +14. This may help you to make an association about the degree of accomplishment a skater achieves on a moves in the field test in order to reach the recognition of honors and distinction. There is the potential to see higher marks more often on moves in the field test if skaters are encouraged to have a greater level of preparedness, to more fully develop the concepts introduced at each test level, and to have an even greater understanding of skating and balance over the blade. If skaters achieve this and are marked accordingly, there is the potential to increase the level of quality in our skaters. As a reskate reminder, a reskate may only be requested if warranted in order to mark a test as pass and not as pass with honors or pass with distinction. Previously, Lynn mentioned the skater's checklist for moves in the field. This is being provided to help skaters become more personally involved and invested in the development of skating skills. This is a tool where skaters and coaches can review progress in relation to each of the moves in the field patterns and test standards expectations. In addition to the bulleted test standards expectations, the following rule, Rule 5032, and also included in the Handbook for Tests, defines the moves in the field aspects which must be considered. As a way of looking at this information, it may help to group the 10 aspects as highlighted on this slide. First, accuracy relating to pattern, extension and posture carriage relating to body line, and edge quality, turn execution, quickness, power, continuous flow, bilateral movement, and strength relating to skating skills. This last aspect, strength, is adult specific. This slide is about the adjusted test expectation standards for adult candidates. Adult candidates were previously titled as adult and masters, now titled as adult 21+, adult 25+, adult 50+. To take the standard intermediate through senior moves in the field test as an adult candidate, the minimum age is 25. Adult 25+ candidates should show the same level of achievement as that of a standard candidate at one test level below. Adult 50+ candidates should show the same level of achievement as that of a standard candidate at 2 test levels below. To take the adult bronze through adult gold moves in the field test, the minimum age is 21. For adult 50+ candidates, the candidate should show the same level of achievement as that of an adult 21+ candidate at one test level below. To recap and simplify moves in the field assessment, does the skater have the concept? If there was error, was it major, or did they have an oops moment? Test result is the composite of what was performed to determine if the skater is ready to move on to the next level. And judges are not required by rules to reskate elements that are not necessary to reskate. This page is included in the Handbook for Tests. It is a reminder about composite judging, taking into account quality, difficulty, and error. A test result is not based solely on the presence or absence of error. Rather, it is the composite of the skater's development and understanding of the concepts, difficulty relative to test level requirements, quality of execution and performance relative to test level expectation, and, as a final check, is the skater ready to move on to the next level?
So our new test sheets are going to be available September 2nd. So if you're preparing for a test session, make sure your test chairs know that they're going to need to get the new sheets if you happen to have a test session on September 2nd. So this ends our presentation right now. And again, thanks to Eric and Todd. And you can ask us any questions and we'd be happy to answer your questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you.